Welcome, everybody, to Dice Masters with James and Zach. I'm Zach.
And I'm James. Hello.
Hello. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We're not going to be playing a game, but we're recording this right after rotation was announced. So if you missed the announcement, which hopefully you didn't, Dice Masters has announced their official rotation for 2018, which will go live June 1st, which I believe is the day of the UK Nationals and a week or so before the US Nationals. And so it's a little bit in the future, but we're starting to think about things that are going to be modern legal. And we're losing quite a few sets this time. I think the first rotation was only 4 sets, and this one's 8 sets. So quite a lot of cards are rotating out. And James and I thought it'd be nice to sit back and talk about some of our favorite cards from the sets that are rotating that we're no longer going to be able to play anymore. And I believe that starts off with the War of Light set, which was the oldest set in the previous modern rotation.
That's right. We'll have a quick look at the basic actions. Not too much to say, I think. We've got Big Entrance, which has conveniently been reprinted. And the other one is Vicious Struggle, which maybe we won't be too sorry to see go, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's got kind of a checkered past. There's a couple of interesting actions that have sort of been functionally reprinted, relaxing and stealth ops. You can kind of do that in other ways. But that Monument to Evil Global, I think, was the only way to get villain affiliation in Modern, and that's gone now. So be a little sad to see that, I guess.
Yeah, we could do with another villain maker global, I reckon. And the obvious ones from the characters, there's Guy Gardner, obviously, is going. Lantern Ring. I'm not sure quite what I'll do without Parallax. That's going to hurt. And then there's Mira, I suppose, the global on Mira, though that hasn't seen much play lately because it's all been about.
No, although it had some potential, that's for sure.
Yeah. And what about less common things? What are you going to do?
I know that Rare Raven is going to be missed by quite a few people, but I know that there's a couple of cards that will always have a place in my heart, like Jade. I was a big fan of the common Jade when I was making sort of bolt only teams. Definitely more of a sort of a theme night kind of card, but that one got onto a lot of my teams, I think, for a while.
Yeah, I reckon Teen Titans, you mentioned Rare Raven, Teen Titans are going to take a hit generally because there's not only Rare Raven, but also the common Wonder Girl, Cassie, and the super rare Starfire, and also from Green Arrow Flash, Cyborg is going. So,
oh yeah, quite a lot of them.
It's pretty brutal.
I know that I always tried to make Lantern Battery, the super rare Lantern Battery, work with kind of an aggressive teams. You force your opponent to either let your damage through or pay a life per character to block. Could very quickly get out of hand if you were aggressive enough. I always like doing that.
I can't even find that one on the thing, but I quite like the 2-cost Lisa Drac. She was a common, I think.
Yeah.
But without a force block, which I think we've lost the last of. Maybe she's not as good as she was. And the super team, like Angry Alien, what's her name? Supergirl. Supergirl is going, and also from World's Finest, the Superman, which reduces his cost, is going. So the Jimmy Olsen team is going to take a bit of a hit.
We're gonna talk about that one again when we get to World's Finest. I mean, I know we lost Guy Gardner, but the Miri Riem, just for getting your cheap characters out for aggro teams, maybe without a lot of the Lantern affiliate. And I don't even know if there are any Lantern affiliations left after Green Arrow Flash and War of Light rotated. But Miri Riem being able to pull 1 or 2 costs out into the field, that was pretty good for aggro as well. So feels like a lot of that really quick aggro is gone. Most of it from War of Light, though.
Yeah. Shall we move on to Spider-Man?
Yeah. Spider-Man, probably not my favorite set by any stretch of the imagination, but some of the actions I think I'm definitely going to miss.
What was the... Betrayal, right?
Betrayal, oh yeah. Pretty decent. It could be used against you pretty well as well, but I know that that card almost single-handedly broke the X-Men First Class draft, so that actually might be pretty fun to draft again now that that card isn't gone.
Back for Seconds was one that didn't see a huge amount of play, but there was a great combo with Wolverine, The Best There Is from UXM, I think, and Anger Issues. and you try. It was from JT, I think, and the idea was to get those two action dice rolling at the same time, and then field Wolverine on his top level using back for seconds, giving him overcrush and +3, and he doubles that up, I think.
Yeah.
And you use the White Tiger Global, also from this set,
Also, yeah.
to make your opponent field a sidekick, which they block Wolverine with because you use the giant spider global to force it to block and then do horrible amounts of overcrushing damage.
Yeah. Luckily, a couple of ones from this set have been reprinted. Arch Nemesis, True Believer, reincarnated as Odin's Fury, I believe. And then with great power, the spinning all your characters up, there was no other way to do that in Civil War, but that's also going to get rotated. And I think the one that I'm going to miss the most, besides Betrayal, is just Slander. Being able to have that one turn blanking, I think we're losing all of that with the rotation. But that was a pretty good way to do it.
That's going, and Kryptonite.
Yeah. So moving into the characters, what are some of the obvious ones that we're going to lose?
Agent Venom is a bit of a blow for King Black Bolt. I think he's not going to happen anymore, really, without Cube and without Venom.
Rare Mary Jane, one of the best ways to get Overcrush that was single-sided, that your opponent couldn't use against you. That was always really good. You mentioned the White Tiger Global already. That one's going to be tough. There's not a lot of ways, I don't think, to force your opponent to do something like field a character. And I think that was the only way that was left, and that's gone now.
There's not much left in the way of Overcrush, is there? There's no character imparted Overcrush that I know of.
No, I think there's just basic action. So you're always going to give your opponent the way to do it as well.
Unless there's stuff in the Warriors 3, but they're giving each other Overcrush maybe, but not to give a random character Overcrush.
Yeah, no, that's true. I always liked Black Widow Stinger as a pretty cheap little aggro piece. She's usually going to get knocked out, and so you're either dealing your opponent damage because they're, letting her through, or they're getting her KO'd. I always liked that.
And I would put in a little vote for Lizard, not because he saw much play, but he was great on that little combo team I had. It was, he's got awful fielding costs. But every time a character die leaves the field zone, he gets +2 defense until end of turn. So if you've got a lot of Hush getting auto knocking themselves out, he can get a massive arse, which you can then swap with Kal-El, which has also gone. So bye Lizard.
I think the last thing I could really think of was Silver Sable, the hero for hire, which might be the only time I ever liked the sacrifice mechanic, and it wasn't as good as if she'd just been KO'd or something, obviously. But being able to give one of your characters unblockable and not having your opponent get access to it, I always liked that idea. And there were a couple ways you could abuse that with some big characters. So
also Spider-Man I played recently, since it's his set. Tangled Web, when he attacks he gets +2 attack, and if he's on a burst, all spider characters get +2 attack while attacking. And he's got a global which makes spider friends. So good on a spider team.
Yeah, for sure.
That's about it for ASM, I think.
Yeah, no, not a lot of love from us, I think, for that set there.
So what's next?
World's Finest, I believe.
No, it's Fair and Under Siege, I think.
Fair and Under Siege. Oh yeah. God, I liked Fair and Under Siege. Good cards in this set.
There was a lot of stuff. What was in it? Okay, basic actions. What is there?
We've got Blink Transmutation. I frequently mention my most hated basic action, so I'm not too sad to see that go, but plenty of people are.
I quite like Blink.
Some cards that we're not sad to see go, things like Cloud Kill. Always hated having to play against Cloud Kill.
Yeah. I'll not be sorry never to see that again. But a couple of cheap ones. Banishment didn't have a huge amount of play, but it's an interesting action. Andy England was saying he was working on that as a way of disrupting Yakkety, but now Yantee's still here, but Cosmic Cube, Parallax, and Banishment have all gone. So no, but that's interesting. And Shocking Grasp is a beautiful card.
Yeah.
It was really nice with Cosmic Cube, which is gone as well. And with I was originally playing it with Storm and Boom Boom, and then later you could do that with the attuned characters like Common Yakkety. Really nice removal and ramp because it preps itself if it knocks out its target.
Yeah, I definitely learned to use that in drafts from people that I played with, where you get a sidekick out, you use Shocking Grasp on it. It's a pretty easy way to get 2 extra dice to roll pretty early in the draft game.
Also, delayed blast fireball, maybe.
Something like that in the game. And that one was always tough to get as a 5 cost, but if you could get it into your rotation, it was pretty devastating. And then I remember playing against it with a Gadgeteer, being able to get it back in the field every turn, and that was pretty devastating once it got out. So that'll be, I don't know if they'll make anything like that again, but that was pretty tough.
Yeah. And how about the obvious ones? Which obvious characters are they gonna? D-Wiz, rare.
Wizard, right? Got to be the most obvious one there. We've got only single blanker left in the game, I think, at this point. So it'll be tough to lose Dwarf Wizard there. Elf Thief also didn't get quite as much play after the first modern because you weren't saving as much energy for things like PXG, but certainly useful and had a place in the game.
Also, Fiends have gone, basically.
Yeah, I mean, some of the Fiends you needed were in Battle for Faerun, but there were still some pretty decent Fiends.
Not anymore.
There, Giant Spider. That's our first global for blocking that's going to be rotated. That one, I remember using that one in quite a few different ways. I think there's one force block global left, but it's 2 energy. It's the Wrecker global from Thor, but we're going to lose 2 single energy force blocks, and that's Giant Spider is a tough one.
The other one
good ability
is Wasp from Civil War.
Yeah.
Dragons have just hit their stride with what's it called, Ring of Winter.
And Silver Dragon, yeah.
And they've now been emasculated because all half of the dragons have gone and all the cheap ones from Fair and Undersea.
Yeah, that's true. The Ring Global. I can't forget about that one. Yeah, that one was always useful.
That's a great one.
I mean, I know the energy fixers kind of eclipsed it a little bit because they were free, but Ring, you could get any energy you wanted. And
you could field a sidekick.
Sidekicks, yeah. So very helpful in a lot of different ways. The Ring Res combo being very effective early game.
Beholder.
Yeah.
Recently used to great effect by Joe in his sort of unbuying team. Which one was it? This one? Yeah, the one that uses free globals, so you could take advantage of the 6-cost healer global for free. So it's probably just as well that's going, to be honest.
Yeah. I know we've still got some Swarm characters from Tomb of Annihilation, and there's some more Swarm characters that have been kind of revealed recently. But Goblin, I think, always had that sort of good combo of really good fielding costs and decent stats and a really cheap purchase cost. And so the common Goblin for Swarm was always one of my favorites.
I'm going to mention, who else? Oh, yeah, D-Wiz, the uncommon. Didn't see a huge amount of play, but he was great on my Ultraman team. Where is it? D-Wiz, Dwarf Wizard, Greater Harper. He gets +2 attack and defense every time you use an action die. And as per the Oracle Ultraman ruling, when Ultraman uses all the basic actions, that's a super rare, you get to, basically Dwarf Wizard gets at least +8 from those, plus another 2 from the Kryptonite. So +10, assuming you can use all of the actions. And then you give him Overcrush with one of the actions which we'll mention later. And storm through with a massive Dwarf Wizard. He definitely has a place in my heart.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only thing I can think of after is just the Flesh Golem.
Yep.
I know that we've got lots of Fabricate characters from Tomb of Annihilation, but Flesh Golem is the only 2/3, and that doesn't always matter very much, but being able to take a 3 cost and a sidekick and fabricate it for Flesh Golem definitely was helpful when you had to, keep things out of the field for various reasons, but also just not having to get 2 of your 2 costs for a 2/4 fabricate I always found really helpful.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a little vote in for the artwork on this card. Intellect Devourer, frankly, the most ridiculous piece of artwork I've ever seen. It's a brain on legs.
Right.
It's a little bit like Elf Thief, the common, except that you don't get to use the energy and it costs 1 more. But the attack on the top side is really good, and the fielding is 0/0/1, so not too much to complain about.
Yeah.
And a great piece of art. What can you say? Okay, shall we move on?
Yeah.
What's next? World's Finest?
World's Finest. I think this one's going to hit me and James the hardest.
Yeah, makes me want to cry. Let's do basic actions before I well up. It's not too
definitely
much,
some. I don't. There's not a lot that gets repeated from these ones, and they're not a lot of really great ones. I think. End of Days was kind of fun, but mostly as a counter to Ultraman and Beholder and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's sort of stuff in there, but nothing dramatic. There's call to action. Is not bad. We forgot to mention there was a Batman in War of Light, which becomes unblockable if you've used a basic action. So this was nice to give him +3 and do a nice unblockable hit. End of Days you mentioned.
And then the Trusted Friend Global for team-up teams we always found really helpful because you get 2 different affiliations for 1 card. But otherwise, yeah, maybe Vigilante Justice, being able to KO your field to get rid of your opponent's field, kind of nice.
That was good. That was really good on that Vibranium Shield, Alfred. That team was marvelous.
But even like using that and Truce at the same time, maybe you could get 4 of your opponent's characters for 2 of your own. It was kind of nice.
Too Big to Fly was also used as a counter against Ultraman, and it had a pump global. But apart from that, let's move on.
Yeah, definitely better in the character section here.
Well, alphabetically, Alfred. There we go. Oh. I just take a few seconds for Alfred. Mate, I'm gonna miss him.
Just being able to keep him in the field, yeah. And then, I mean, right next to him, the Bane Global. I used that one a lot. I liked that. And all 3 of the Banes had pretty decent abilities, and they all had the same global. So that was always pretty nice.
Is there a Force Attack Global left in Modern?
No, I think that was the only one.
That's surely that's going to come. Surely they can't leave us without all those kind of globals.
I mean, yeah, we're just going to have the one kind of expensive Force block. That's not so good.
Babs is gone. I never had her, so I won't miss her. But.
Yeah, me neither. Never had him. Was trying to get Babs, but so I think from the starter, especially the Batman that gets the reduction in cost, and the other Batmans had some good abilities. The Vengeance, there were combos with that and stuff. But the being able to get really cheap Batman was really great for single affiliation teams. And then similarly, the Superman that got discounted. I mean, that was probably a staple of all of my sort of Timmy like Jimmy Olsen Superman teams.
I think the powerful bat teams, just like Teen Titans, have been a bit eviscerated. I know there's stuff still in Batman, but the really good stuff like
Bruce Wayne,
the Batman you mentioned, and all of the Bruce, well, at least the uncommon and the rare Bruce Waynes, both fantastic, and the Oracles and the Dick Grayson even shenanigans with the rare Dick Grayson. And all of the Oracles, well, I don't suppose everybody's going to miss them, but they were very powerful, very useful at times.
Yeah, a lot of good control pieces with the Oracles gone, and then Kryptonite. I mean, how many times did we use Kryptonite? Even for your Ultraman combo, but also just, I mean, Kryptonite was on my Yakkety Pureblood team. It was on a lot of good control teams. And like we mentioned earlier, Slander's gone and Kryptonite's gone and Cold Gun, which we'll get to, but that means all of the single turn blanking is basically gone.
I think we can't just pass over Ultraman quite that quickly. Just take another second for Ultraman, another of mine. Oh,
yeah.
Him and Alfred, close to my heart.
Yeah. Cannot forget about the Kal-El Global that you mentioned already.
Oh, that's a big one. For me, this rotation is about, Steel. I've just pulled up Steel for no reason. Where's Kal-El? There he is. We're losing a lot of tech globals. This is a big one for me. Like, we lost Ant-Man in the first rotation and now this one. So there's no longer any shenanigans of switching attack and defense. And I like that. I think that promotes attacking against instead of direct damage, which would do the game some good if we had a bit more attacking. So bring us another switchy global, please.
We've got the rare Scarecrow. I know the KO King is going to shed some tears over that, and he was sort of the person who inspired me to search that card out in the first place. But really great kind of little tech piece there as well.
That was back in the day of Bard. That did its job extremely well. I think that might be
Two-Face.
Two-Face.
Yeah, the uncommon and the rare.
I'm not that.
No, Two-Face was pretty strong in Prime when Prime first came out, and World's Finest was the youngest team or the oldest team in Prime, and I think it was probably going to make a bit of a splash if it wasn't rotated in this current setup.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah, definitely strong though.
brutal. Also, Nightwing, I think. Basically, the whole Bat family's been messed up. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
What's next?
Let's
Civil
talk
War?
about Civil War.
Civil War. I did a Civil War draft the other day. It was really good.
I think is this our last set that has a starter associated with it?
Oh, yes, there are basic actions, aren't there?
Yeah, yeah. And of course, the obvious choice there would be Superhero Registration Act.
Yeah, that saw a lot of play more than anything else. I don't know if there's much other really good stuff. Like the front line had its moment. There was a little bit of time where that saw quite a lot of play. And Long Live the Resistance.
I think Long Live the Resistance was always interesting. Yeah, that global was good against Ring, but Ring's already rotated, and I don't know if it's that effective anymore.
Yeah, I never bothered getting a full set of those cards. I don't think.
Yeah.
No.
Field promotion was the other way to spin all your characters up. It was more expensive than with Great Power from Spider-Man, but it used burst and double burst instead of just. It was kind of a trade-off either way. And with affiliate or Awaken being a thing, losing both of those actions to spin all your characters up is a little bit tough. But there's still a couple of ways to do it.
Some people have run Escape Incarceration. I never managed to use it, but I think as a way of there we go. As a way of, if you miss your role on a big character, as a way of sort of getting that back, that could be effective.
Yeah, but,
yeah. Okay, let's move on to characters.
Character-wise, Rare Bear and Zemo, pretty good unblockable character. You had to do some work. You had to KO something, and it was tough at first. There wasn't a lot of ways to KO your own characters, but when rotation first happened.
Golems and Alfred and Vibranium Shield. Yeah, that's sort of same thing. Same thing with the Lizard and Kal-El. It's all gone. No more of that. Jeez.
Yeah. There's not a ton of great pieces here. Honestly, we used some of it. Deathlok, we used it in a draft probably, but I don't think I ever saw it in play.
You did.
The two costs.
I played it on on a shield too.
Yeah, true. Yeah. The Common Justice though, cheap and could get buffed pretty easily.
Yep, he was my go-to
really
aggro.
fast.
I was never very keen on Guy Gardner. I liked a bit of Justice. He was alright.
There you go. Luke Cage Global. Yeah. I used that without Vicious Struggle, although it made Vicious Struggle pretty overpowered when it did first come out.
Yeah, that was a thing, wasn't it? Also, Namorita, uncommon.
Oh yeah.
That's well, Shield Ring is done for, obviously, but she was good. She was a good Guy counter. A beautiful part of that one that won the Worlds. When was that? Last year? Only last year?
Last year, I think. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Pim Particles. I think between Pim Particles and Mary Jane, I think there's still ways to give your own characters Overcrush, but they are all basic actions now, and so your opponent gets access to them.
And Rocket Raccoon, the one that Laurier used in his Vicious Raccoon team, dealing one damage to each player with a bit of Vicious Struggle. That's met its end.
You got Super Ronin, which might be the only really sought after superhero from the set, unless I'm forgetting about one.
He's been on my list for ages, and now I can just forget about him.
Yep, just cross him right off the list.
That suits me just fine. Him and Babs, I'm not sorry to see them go because I never saw them. Squirrel Girl, there was a great team with Squirrel Girl and Ultraman. She's a bit special, that Squirrel Girl.
Yeah.
And she's good with her.
The new Squirrel Girl can get Squirrel tokens, but that one of the benefits is you could get all 4 of them in the field at the same time.
And it actually came with its own token.
Yeah. You didn't have to make them on a laser cutter.
Vibranium Shield, I keep mentioning, I think is this one. Continuous, when a character die you control is KO'd, character dice you control get +2 attack, +2 defense, till the end of turn. And you can do that again and again with knocking out Alfred and having him come back and then switching it. And the Wasp we mentioned, the global, is not that one, but that one. Pay a mask. Winter Soldier, not so much.
I played around with the rare on a life gain team, but I don't think otherwise anybody else really played around with them much.
Anything else?
Punisher. Sorry?
I had Punisher on my list, the uncommon, which makes all the characters after him have intimidate, which is a keyword which is introduced in this set, I think, was it?
Yeah, I think the only intimidates that were just pure, you could just use them on whatever you want, were from this set. There are a couple of intimidate characters outside of this set, but they all have some kind of contingency. They have to be a villain or a non-villain or something. So you can't just straight up remove. And it's sort of I always liked the mechanic, but it was never used enough, and I feel like I had to explain it to people when I brought it to some kind of theme nights because they never remembered how it worked.
I like intimidate. I reckon that's got, as it's a key word, it's not a when-fielded ability. I reckon it's got a bit of legs in it, but not from this set, it would seem.
Yep.
Shall we move on?
Yeah. So we've got Turtles next, the first Turtle set. So there's still the one Turtle set left.
What's the?
And this one also had basic actions. It introduced the one-cost pizza, which is the first one-cost action. Although sort of debatable how good of an action that was.
I liked Enraged because I used it with the Dwarf Wizards uncommons I mentioned earlier with Ultraman. This is what I used to give them Overcrush, so that has a special place for me.
Yeah, but I think other than that, Turtle Van, which is was the continuous action I had on my my Satchel team, mostly because it was the only sort of continuous action you could buy for cheap with just generic energy.
It's actually really good against Overcrush, isn't it?
Yeah. So it had some use too, but some of these are reprints from previous actions, and then I think the other ones didn't really quite see a lot.
Special Delivery? No, not that one. Oh no, okay, I'm thinking of something else.
That I think was the reprint of Gearing Up.
Yeah, right. No,
and then Tactical Cover I think had been a reprint as well. So yeah, I think we're going to be kind of short here. James and I are sort of in agreement. There's not a whole lot of good characters in this set.
Casey Jones. In recent times, I've had some confusion over Casey Jones. I've sort of been reluctant to play him because I didn't know whether it was sidekicks and villains or sidekicks or villains. Either way, he was pretty useful.
Yeah, and then Foot Ninja, the Ninja Syndicate. As soon as I saw Insect Plague as a basic action from Two Annihilation, I was like, I'm definitely going to play that with Foot Ninja, and that won me the PDC Prime event that I went to. So that was an awesome combo, and probably a little bit too powerful, which is why some of the stuff recently that's come out where it gets buffed with sidekicks, you can tell it's a lot more subdued than Foot Ninja was.
And a little vote for Krang, Ultraman Warlord. He's a 7 cost, and I never actually managed to make him work effectively, but he's got a beautiful ability. When fielded, move all sidekick dice from your opponent's use pile and prep area to their bag. If it works, it's great, and he's got 7, 8, 9 in defense, but it never did for me. But
yeah.
Bye, mate. He's got lovely sort of pink card and pink
dice. I mean, I think trying to make Bebop and Rocksteady work in villain teams. I played around with that a little bit, but other than that, I think April was a decent ally, she was cheap and she had 0 fielding on all of her sides. So
she had a 5 defense on the top level.
Yeah, so I think I played around with her a little bit, but yeah, nothing too serious.
Anyway, let's gloss.
Let's leave the Turtles over and talk about the Green Arrow Flash.
Where are we? There it is. Okay. So we
got no basic actions. Yeah, first set that had no starter associated with it.
Looking alphabetically, there was the Atom, the common Atom, which was on Truby's team recently. The one with he had Bishop on it. That was really good, funky, spinning up and down team. That's gone. That's that one. Sorry.
I liked Black Adam, the rare. I was sort of hoping to make it work with Cube, but then they both went away, so I didn't really get a chance. But some way of eliminating your opponent's field and then they have to take damage or they lose their characters. I always thought that was kind of funky. Sort of the obvious one. Sorry, we forgot to mention the Cold Gun continuous action that made it onto a lot of competitive teams. Obviously, this set introduced the 4 energy fixers, and those have been functionally reprinted, although
they were better as characters, I think, weren't they? Because Cyborg was useful.
Merlin and Grodd were very useful.
They saw quite a lot of play between them, didn't
The actions have benefits in it. They can't be blanked with, Shriek or whatever, but they could be stopped with Wrecker. So they kind of have that trade-off there. But they were pretty helpful. Obviously, the chalkboard. I mean, James and I were doing some practice games before the WKO, and we took chalkboard off our team just for practice to see what we would do without it. And 4 turns later, we realized we'd forgotten that we'd removed it because we were just so instinctively paying a shield to prep things. It's like when PXG rotated, and you have to kind of remember not to save masks for no reason anymore.
Easy to forget. Star Labs was great global, and it took me a while to get into it, but once I did, it was really good. I still don't have the new Professor X, so Star Labs was my go-to for Mimic Ramp, for example, and the action itself is also really good if you happen to have a sort of beefy Bolt or Shield character on your team. And maybe Static's a bit of a pain in the bum, and I can't find him. Where is he? Oh, there he is. The common Static. When your opponent rolls 2 dice, it's really nice to have actions which trigger at a time when your opponent can't do anything at all about it. It's really like an unusual timing for his trigger. Like
yeah.
And one more.
A couple of good super rares in this set. We got Katana, being able to just kind of get her in the field as soon as you purchase her. That was always useful. Famously got used with the King Black Bolt combo, but also Mask Ring, which is also gone. But just getting that extra character in the field was pretty nice.
Zatanna, you mentioned also.
Zatanna, yeah. Being able to remove all of your opponent. Well, a pretty decent chance of being able to remove all of your opponent's sidekicks, and then also deal them damage in the process. That was always, and it was single-sided. They couldn't use that against you. It was always nice.
And I will put a final vote in for King Shark. I actually really wanted to use this, and I've never actually used it. I will. I'll use it in Golden sometime. But it's a great piece of artwork again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never got to play with it much, but the Uncommon Killer Frost, I think, was a decent tech piece where you could get her KO'd, and then that die would go to your opponent's bag instead of anywhere else. It was always pretty nice there.
And she and King Shark both had lovely dice.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, lots of great utility in this set that we're gonna miss out on, not a lot of. I mean, the energy fixers are back, but I don't know if they're gonna reprint Chalkboard. But man, it was useful while we had it.
Okay, let's do Deadpool. That's the last.
Okay, yeah, the last set.
It's a bit of a shock. I thought. I mean, maybe some people expected it. But, I mean, I kind of expected Green Arrow Flash because they'd been replacing the energy changer globals, but not so much Deadpool. It seems like it wasn't that long ago.
Well, and somebody did the math, and it actually has only been about 19 months, so it's not even 2 years old yet. So.
Well, that's 19 months in the US is probably quite a lot less.
It's true,
quite a lot less in Europe.
Yeah, don't forget about the international there. So that's unfortunate. No actions for this set again. And the super rares for this set were just kind of disappointing all around.
Yeah, that's the only full set of super rares I ever won.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'll put in a plug for Lady Deadpool, who had this great ability to duplicate your actions. And then obviously there was Multiple Man, who was quite a hot commodity for a while because people were having a hard time getting him. And chasing him meant you get a lot of other crap super rares in the process. And then
X-23 also. Super rare.
Yeah, the kind of combo piece that I just love playing around with. And I know Ben was trying him at the UK WKOs, but it can be a little finicky, I think.
Looks like my thing isn't responding. Okay, let's see what it can do for itself. Apart from the super rares, which I'm going to assume you know what they look like. Storm Rare, I'm going to mention because that was the prototype for a tune, really. Find that, and she had a place for doing extra damage on my Ultraman team. So again,
nostalgia.
For some reason, I'm not getting the pictures up, but
no, I don't think they're up on this set.
That would explain.
Satchel of Unlimited Weaponry was my first successful Virtual Worlds team.
Yeah, that was cool.
And that was just a fun one. We lost a lot of the continuous actions, and it occurred to me earlier that we also lost all of the ways to remove continuous actions except for the new rare storm from X-Men First Class. So
which I also don't have.
Yeah. So the ones that are left are pretty sticky.
There's not too. There's the traps though. Traps can be removed by something else, can't they?
Yeah.
Anything else? Lockjaw. Lockjaw was never
another
quite,
weird timing, like you mentioned with Static, right? They couldn't really do much about that.
He was never quite meta, but it's pretty cool. While he's active, before your opponent's clear and draw step, name a non-psychic die. If your opponent draws that die, deal 2 damage to all of that opponent's character dice, and those knocked out dice go and they don't get re-rolled that turn.
Yeah.
And Modok, who's got some more beautiful dice and a really big fat ass. It's a shame we can't see his picture, but he's got 4, 6, 8 in defense, and he's preventing your opponent spinning things. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
But apart from that,
the rare Electra, which was annoying that it only protected your characters against global abilities, and they had to be your cheap characters, but really good for preventing things from getting blinked back and stuff like that. And they recently revealed they're doing a promo of her, but she won't come out until after rotation has already happened. So great promo to use in Golden, I guess. And then I know that the Black Bolt Medusa combo a little bit got overshadowed by Madam Web in Guardians, which is still legal. But Medusa by herself, just being able to block 2 characters and having deadly was always pretty kind of useful if you were trying to wall up. And then that Black Bolt with some of the cheaper deadly characters that had come out was sort of seeing a little bit more viable, but those are gone now.
Stepford Cuckoos were interesting a little bit. The 2 and the 3 costs, and the Vampire Wolverine I quite like.
Oh yeah.
The ex-vampires will feed. And that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, if we can sum it up, what are you going to miss most, Zach?
I really liked the shenanigans you could do with Kal-El Global. I'm going to miss that. I think mostly that World's Finest set is going to be the one that is sort of the most heartbreaking for me, with Kryptonite and the Bat Family affiliation, which I always liked, and that Superman that got discounted.
And Alfred.
I know your Ultraman is going to go along with Alfred. So
I would totally agree with you. Definitely, World's Finest is going to hit hardest for me. There's a lot of memories in that set, I think, and quite a lot of decent stuff as well.
Yeah.
And looking forward, what do you reckon to rotation? Good thing, bad thing?
I always like rotation. Some people have mixed feelings about it. I think Deadpool was a little bit early, but also I can't see much in Deadpool that I was like really clamoring to build around anyway. But maybe I'll be proved wrong. I am a little sad that Cube got rotated. I know that I'm in the minority on that case, but I always felt like there were plenty of teams that weren't going to be super broken that could have really utilized Cube to make them, more tournament worthy, and that maybe we'll see Yakkety Pureblood continue to win because there's still ways to use her pretty effectively.
Nah. I have to say I was a little bit. I feel the whole thing has freshened everything. I'm quite looking forward to it. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It's quite nice to have to concentrate on fewer cards. And even the cube. Although I was generally with you on the cube, I'm just quite happy the issue is solved. I don't really care which one of them was banned.
Yeah. Hopefully it is solved. We'll look forward to seeing what's in the new sets coming out, and hopefully they work well with the other ones that we've already got. Like I said, it's quite a few. It's we lost 8 sets this time instead of just 4, and so it just feels more impactful overall.
Lots of tech needs replacing.
I think as we start to kind of think about building, you sort of look at some of the sets that we're winning, but I really feel like it's going to be tough to replace some of those pieces that we lost, and it's gonna change things in ways we haven't quite experimented with enough to realize yet.
Cool, it's an exciting new world. We should probably stop
there. Feel free to let us know in the comments if you disagree, if you agree, what you think about the rotation that's happening.
And please tell us what you think of this format, which involves me and Zach blathering on about stuff. If it's something you like, you'd like to see more of, or if there's something you'd like to hear us blather on about, please let us know.
Yeah, sure. But anyway, thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.